The Parks Committee for July 28th is now in session. Roll call. Let it be noted that the chair, Alder Scannell, and Alder Burnett, and Alder Gerlach are present, and Alder Weary is excused. We have a quorum, though, so we shall continue. We'll take a motion to approve our agenda.
Approve.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have our agenda set. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to approve, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and I'll now pause for James to catch up while we pass the mustard. Bit of a pickle, something I don't relish.
You can go on to the next item.
Stop!
On to regular business. And as soon as I can scroll a little bit here, come on. Number one, consideration with possible action on the approval of the continuation of the St. John's Homeless Support Program at St. John's Park through November 1st, 2021. Staff?
So this program was discussed and approved by the Parks Committee on March of 2021. So the motion that was made was to approve the request by St. John's Homeless Shelter to run a homeless support program at St. John's Park starting April 30th on a trial basis, contingent upon the review of the program with the Parks Committee in July for a possible continuation through November 1st of 2021. So this is the only Parks Committee we've had in July. So we brought this forward to give you an update. So we do have someone here from the St. John's Homeless Shelter who can give you a summary of the program and to answer any questions you might have. So Matt, he's the Associate Executive Director of St. John's Homeless Shelter. He's here to answer any questions, so I would recommend you open up the floor.
I'll take a motion to open the floor.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Please state your name and address. Andy,
Matt, would you like to give a brief update on the program and any other background information you want to give as far as how the program is going to date?
Sure. So we launched, would have been May 3rd, I believe that would have been a Monday. So we were able to launch, and we've seen a lot of success at the park since that time. Some of the coolest things that we've seen, in addition to just really the programming and the partnerships that have taken place in the community, has been the return of the daycare center to the park. We've also seen families coming back, moms and dads bringing their kids to the park to use the playground equipment, and having that, that's been some of the coolest things. It's just being able to talk with mom and dad and just, their level of safety, and they enjoy having the presence of St. John's staff and having the program in the park. So we're definitely seeing success there. We have about 16 different partnerships with the community, and I'm constantly fielding more requests for people who are looking to partner. So if I could, I'd highlight a few of those. So we've seen everything from new community outreach clinic coming to offer medical services right to the park, right at the park, which has been huge, eliminating, some that existed there. We've seen new community shelter outreach coming to the park, to obviously see if there's a bridge back to resources that they have available and shelter there. So we've seen guests being able to successfully move into that, as well as our shelter, and get off the streets. Several churches. So we've had Green Bay First Church, Spring Lake Church, Lifebridge Church, Frontline Harvest Ministry has been coming in, and they have a ministry that's specific to women, which there are certainly vulnerable women at the park. And so they're going to be really rolling with that on Saturdays and reaching women and helping them get connected back to their shelter and resources. Salvation Army has been a huge partner, just from providing art in the park, so addressing kind of mental health as they're facilitating that workshop. And then we've had other like meals and yard games and stuff, which again, we've seen community members participate in as well, neighbors and stuff. So we've seen a good value add there. Foundation's Health and Whole and Wellness, so they offer the mental health. It's been really cool to watch them come to the park and just connect with guests on a really organic level and bridge back to their services, getting people connected to that mental health treatment that they need. And so that's broken down some of the stigmas. Once they have that trust and rapport and relationship established, there certainly is more of a willingness or desire to essentially receive that treatment that's available. UW Extension has offered the FoodWise program. We've had Tree of Life, Food Crisis Cafe, Young Life, and also this other group that's really been cool. It's a husband and wife. They come in on Sundays and they offer kind of a fellowship in the park, but they also work through St. Vincent's and stuff, and they've been able to connect people into shelter as well. So we are seeing just a lot of positive things, positive momentum. And again, we're constantly fielding community partners who are wanting to participate with us as well. So I would say, we're definitely everything that we thought it would be. I think it's been exceptional in that. So we've had a great partnership with the Parks Department and Lieutenant Allen as well, who comes out in the mornings, and is a part of that process and has just been such a huge resource to us to be able to call, and get any help we needed. Lieutenant Allen has also been just huge in getting our guests connected as he's built that trust and rapport in those relationships. He's helped get them connected to mental health treatment and different things as well in our community. So it's been an awesome few months here. So
I don't know.
Does anyone have any questions? Alder Burnett?
Yeah, Matt, thank you for your presentation and your update. It's what we were hoping for. Thing that comes to mind, and I say this with all sincerity, thank you. You pointed to all of the positives. I mean, had there been any negative situations, any negative interactions, any difficulties?
Yeah, I think there has been. I think, when you're addressing mental health and the AODA stuff, you're going to definitely come into those negative situations. I think one of the things that we've seen is an uptick in police calls, but on the flip side of that, we also haven't had a presence in the park to essentially enforce the park rules that are already set in place. And so I think we're seeing some of that assistance as well. So with somebody who's having a mental health crisis and things aren't going so good, we definitely give PD a call. Lieutenant Allen has come in as well and assisted with that. So there is that as well, but we've also seen, I would say out of that negativity is that you also see the group that really appreciates and is thankful for the Engage program and the partnerships. And they really rise up to, essentially be a support, I guess, if you will. So one example would be, one guest was not following the rules and was being really disrespectful, to staff, that being myself. And there was probably about 12 other guests at the time who stood up and spoke to the value that they experience at the park and not wanting to lose this and really recognizing, just that gratitude for what we're doing there. So you see like I don't know, an army of supporters just rise up and challenge the person who's out of line. So
All right.
it's cool to see them kind of rising up as leaders as well in that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. One last question, Chairman. Regards to businesses and neighbors, obviously when we met a few months back, a lot of neighbors, some businesses were concerned. Is there ongoing outreach with the businesses? How does the business community feel? Bits or pieces or as a whole, what's your outreach been to them?
And so I would answer that. I do field, occasional, maybe there was a complaint or whatever. So, I do reach out to them. And then I also, just with our park staff and stuff, like when we're in there during the day, just expressing the need to, really focus on this, make sure this isn't happening. But there have been phone calls that have been had with like local, places. We're working with the church. We've had, in one situation, we had a former seasonal staff member who decided that they wanted to recruit this big drive or whatever in the community. And so I just encouraged her to redirect that to the area shelters and not to create that space be at shelter, because we want to be good community neighbors there and stuff. So I think in any interaction, and just answering the tough questions and being there for those tough conversations and, and walking through that with them, but letting them know that we are there to support them and make sure that this is a positive thing for our community.
All right, thank you.
Alder Gerlach, where'd you go? Anything, Alder Gerlach?
Oh, I was just getting ready to close the floor if you thought we should close the floor. I will just, since you called on me, sir, I will just tell you all that I have visited the program 8 times since it started. I don't go there with a clipboard and take notes or anything like that. I go there with my little dog. And some people like to pet the dog and some aren't interested in her, and that's fine. I know a lot of the participants by name now. I know a lot of their stories, and they know me and Zena. And so if you feel like you need to hear a firsthand report, I've been there 8 times. I got one.
Okay, well, let's finish with what the floor business here first. If there are no other questions, Officer.
Yeah, Lieutenant Allen here. Just to piggyback on Matt's stuff about the businesses, besides going out in the morning and stopping at the park, I do make my rounds in the afternoon at times and check in with the local businesses and see if they're seeing anything or if they need me to stop around a little more often. In the beginning, there was a lot of contacts, not a lot, but maybe more contact at the funeral home. There's been one out at the dentist office, but that pretty much only lasted for maybe the first few weeks, and it's been pretty quiet since then. So, I think hasn't been any real issues and complaints from the businesses, but I do still check in, and it's a pretty good program, and everything's going pretty well from my end of what I see. So,
and on the parks end, we really have received very few complaints. We had one complaint about making sure that we're fulfilling the separation of church and state, and then we had one other complaint that the group was in the that the program was just in the park too much. So I've only received 2 complaints throughout the entirety of this program.
Is there anything else you'd like to care to add, Matt? Or
no, I think that's good. I mean, that's good.
Okay, is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this? I see no one. Thanks, Matt. I'll take a motion to close the floor.
Move to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to close the floor, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now closed. Director Dishtight?
Yeah, what I would like to say is, what we're looking for is approval of the continuation of the St. John's Homeless Support Program at St. John's Park through November 1st of 2021. So that's really what we're looking for a motion, if you're supportive of continuing the program.
Is there any further discussion? Anything anyone wants to add? Okay, I will just add that I did receive just recently a complaint from a business concerned with some homeless issues. So I don't know. I mean, we have homelessness in our community. I don't know that they wouldn't have the issues whether we had this program or not. In fact, the issues might even be worse. So I certainly support this program. I think it's a great program. I think it certainly a benefit to the community and to our homeless population. And there, of course, there's going to be, without this program, with this program, there's going to be difficulties. And I think with this program, we're going to be able to address those difficulties better than without it. So definitely got my full support. Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
I'll make that motion. I want to speak to it after it gets second.
Is there a second?
Second. I didn't hear the motion.
What Director Ditchfight say?
Go ahead, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, and again, thank you, Lieutenant and Matt. Just the continual outreach to neighbors, to businesses is important. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, you don't always get full disclosure or absolute candid responses from businesses if they may be looking to close or leave. And I think that's something we need to avoid. We just can't assume that if all the feedback from businesses has been either quiet, neutral, or even, borderline positive, that doesn't mean that they don't have concerns that perhaps they're not willing to share. And when you talk about stabilizing a neighborhood, that's a very good neighborhood that we need to keep stabilized, even improve, obviously, a loss of a business can be devastating and hard to overcome. So just the continual outreach, and it seems like both the gentlemen here have been doing that, but it's just important to know that just because we're not getting any negative comments doesn't mean that everything is 100% okay. So that's all.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, seconded, and all in favor?
Alder LaFave is trying to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you waving. Okay, before we vote, Alder Dorf?
No, Alder LaFave is trying to speak.
I don't see. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm sorry. Alder LaFave.
I'm here.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that, the homeless shelter's been there a long time. So I think these businesses are getting used to it. But I think the program itself, they should realize that this is going to help the area, because when you're trying to reach the people that really need it, this is what you need so that they can take care of the problems that come up. And I think this program is really good. At P&P, we had a discussion on this too. And I think this is a really good program. I think we're showing some really good results. There are a couple people, there was on the list, there's 2 that are really bad, but they have a lot of mental and alcohol problems. And there's probably been long-term people. And when somebody's been on it long-term, it's very hard for them to change. It's almost difficult. It's almost impossible sometimes, not always, but this program is really getting to a lot of people, I think, that really need it. And then I think we're going to help the whole area be better. So I just want to say, thank you.
Thank you. If that's it, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. On to 2. James, okay, good?
We are good. Thanks.
You're good, okay. On to item 2. Consideration with possible action on the request by Alder LaFave and Alder Stevens for the Parks Department to use best practices for grass cutting, which includes no cutting when there is no rain for 2 weeks, and to set the cutting height between 2 to 3 inches. Does staff want to jump on this right away, or should we cut into
I
Alder
would
LaFave?
recommend you open it up to Alder LaFave to speak.
Okay, Alder LaFave, it's all yours.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing issue for me. I'm sorry. It's something that I really I believe in, that we have to do best practices with our grass and all kinds of things. It's noted that the longer you leave your grass grow, like 2 to 3 inches, you can combat a lot of the weeds that the weed seeds have trouble getting down into the ground with the grasses. And so by doing that, continually keeping your grass at 3 is optimal. I keep mine at 3, and then it goes up to 4 when I cut. But it keeps a lot of the weeds out of your lawn and your grass, and then you don't have to be using these chemicals to try to treat and to take care of all these weeds. When you cut it really short, and it has been short, I know, I've seen it over at the sanctuary in the field across the street from me, it's almost scalping it. And there's a lot of uneven areas too. I mean, there's areas over there in that field where it's just ground now because they cut all the grass right off. And so then you end up, when we don't have rain, it almost burns out, and you have to be careful. I notice now it's come back very well. And at the field, I noticed, I think they left it for 2 weeks. It grew really nice. It's nice and lush. It's growing well, and I would like to see all the grass in all the parks. There's really no reason to have the length like a golf course for the majority of the areas of our parks. It's just not healthy to have. And the shorter you cut your grass, the shorter your root is. And if you keep it long, you have a longer root system, which can handle more of your drought areas, times that we don't have rain. But yeah, they were out cutting. We had not had rain for 3 weeks, and I had to call Director DeChite and tell him, yeah, they were cutting over the sanctuary, and there's no reason. There's nothing growing. So that's my big deal. Oh, another thing too, that lawnmowers pollute more than cars. And that's another thing we got to look at, that we're putting out so much CO2 carbon out there. And also then if they're cutting, they're wasting gas. And then when they're not cutting, if they don't cut, then some of these people maybe can be moved into some other areas that need to be done in the parks.
Okay,
So I can,
Director?
yeah, I can kind of talk to you a little bit about what our practices currently are and how we manage our turf. And maybe Andy can jump in or chime in on a few points if necessary. And then once I go over what our management practices are, then we can talk about whether or not we should change them or how we address this concern. So in general, we already are following this practice. So the accepted best management practice for mowing height recommends a range anywhere from 2.5 to 3 inches tall for best results. An athletic field should be mowed anywhere from 1.5 to 3 inches tall. It should be a little bit shorter than a normal turf area. And that depends on the type of field and how it was constructed. So if you can imagine, it's harder to play on athletic fields if the turf is too long. You know, the balls don't roll as far, it's harder to run in the turf. So I did ask our park superintendent, Andy, to check all of our mowers when this concern was brought forward. He did verify that all of our mowers, with the exception of Bay Beach Amusement Park, are set to 3 inches tall. So throughout our entire park system, that is where our decks are currently set, and they have been. We didn't just raise them up now. That's the practice that we've been mowing to. But at Bay Beach Amusement Park, we do currently set that deck at 2.5 inches. And at Bay Beach, we also mow more frequently than we do at other parks because it is such a heavy tourist area. We do manage that turf a little bit differently to keep it looking a little bit nicer than leaving it grow longer as we would in a typical park. So, you know, just wanted you to be aware of those issues. When it comes to actually determining how often we mow our facilities, you know, we do have regular routes that our crews go on as they're considering when to mow. And we don't we do adjust it based on the length of the turf. So if there's times when it doesn't need to be mowed, we'll pass through that and go on to the next park. But we do it on a case-by-case basis, and it's to the discretion of the people mowing. So we don't have a manager going out and assessing the turf at every park every day, determining whether or not they should be mowed. We rely on the expertise of our mowing crews to do that. And sometimes those mowing crews consist of college students or seasonal help. And so on a yearly basis, there's a training component to that as far as when it's appropriate to mow and when it's not. In the situation that Alder Lefebvre brought up and called me about, it was a situation where it was a summer employee, and we then proceeded to educate that employee of when we should be mowing and when we shouldn't. It's an ongoing issue that we deal with year to year. We would have some concerns, or I would have some concerns, if we limited it to absolutely no mowing within a 2-week period of no rain. And the concerns I would have, it's not that we can't implement that, I just wanted you to know what my concerns would be if we were to consider that. Obviously, we have a very big city with miles long, and there's a lot of times when portions of the city get rain and other portions of the city don't. So it's real hard to determine which park has rain in that 2-week period and which park doesn't. And it's easy to determine that if there's no rain at all throughout the city for a 2-week period. But there's other considerations that come into effect in that 2-week period, such as, in our ongoing rounds, did the turf need to be mowed within that 2 weeks anyway? Was it scheduled to be in rotation the day that ban when it goes into effect? Also, when you look at a park, the grass grows differently in the park. Weeds grow quicker than turf does. So a lot of times you're mowing to just basically level the weeds in relation to the grass. Sometimes that's what you're mowing. It's difficult when you're mowing thousands of acres to do that with hand equipment, such as a weed whacker. Also, when you're in the parks, grass in the shade in a sunny day will grow differently than grass in the sun. So that all kind of comes into effect as we're looking at which areas to mow and which ones we don't mow and how often we do it. So that being said, I kind of touch bases on what our general practice has been. It's been the way that we've been doing it for years. Is it a perfect system? No, it's not, because like I said, it relies on a judgment call, sometimes by interns, and it's just a continual training. But it's very difficult to put standard rules and regulations into effect that it's a citywide policy when you're mowing thousands of acres in your entire park system. It's easy to do if you have a small yard or a small facility, but if you're looking at a large park system, that's very difficult to manage. So I don't know, Andy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or we can take questions first, however you want to handle it.
Well, if Andy has anything to add, let's hear from staff first.
Yeah, no, I'll echo pretty much exactly what Dan said. I know the beach is a little bit different story. We had some changes out there in leadership and things. So this spring we had with the crews out there. In the past, it used to be cut shorter because the thinking was it was easier to maintain from like picking cigarette butts and garbage wise. So it's easier to see that and pick up a faster cleanup that way. So we came to an agreement out there that this year, let's give it a try at 2.5, because, we get to the mid part of the year with no rain and it would burn out. So we want to try and avoid that as best we could. So we raised our decks to 2.5 inches out there this year, and it seems to be working good. We're still fighting the geese out there and at the wildlife sanctuary, because they like to go through and they trample the grass and pick at bugs and tear up the grass too. So that's kind of explains some of the thinners look kind of browned out in some areas. But yeah, I pretty much in agreement with what Dan says, and that's how we proceed.
Okay, Alder Lefebvre and then Alder Dorf.
Yeah, the problem is, I know Dan had mentioned before that you set the deck at 3 inches. Something's wrong, because that field, I can tell you, it's 1 inch. I've gone out and measured it. It's not 3 inches, it's 1 inch. And so that's why it's been, when the sun in that one section, it was brown when we had it really dry. And over at Bay Beach, it looked awful. It was yellow and brown grass. I mean, that looked awful. So something's wrong. It's not cutting it at 3 inches. So I think this is something that you should check, because, I mean, I've gone over and I measured it several times when you cut. So that's why I'm bringing this up, because it's actually not cutting at 3, even 2. It's cutting it at 1 inch. And so that's the problem. I think when you cut it so short, you're kind of scalping it. That's what I've been seeing. So that's why I'm bringing this forward. I think you have to realize how you are really cutting it.
And
so something's wrong. I don't know what.
What we can do in that situation, like I said, Andy has gone out, he's measured the decks himself. What we can do is talk to our mowing crews and make sure that they're not lowering the deck beyond where they're supposed to be when they go out and mow. We weren't aware that that was happening, and I'm not saying it is, but we can verify with our mowing crews that that's not the practice that we want to follow if they are indeed doing that.
See, and that's when it gets cut that short. That's why I'm really concerned, because that's when your weeds grow in it really bad, and then you end up with having to treat or whatever, and you're cutting more to just get the weeds down, because if the grass is too short. Yeah, that's my big concern.
Okay, Alder Dorf.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm glad we listened to Alder Lefebvre's concerns, and I'm also glad at the response that Director Ditchite gave. It sounds like you have been doing things. You have an awareness of where the decks should be. I wouldn't want to have council micromanaging, how long each blade of grass is, but if there are areas, and Alder Lefebvre's brought that forward to you, and now you're going to check into it. I feel pretty comfortable with what Parks is doing. So thank you for all the hard work you do and for understanding that maybe there's still some things that need to be tweaked, but I would never want to be in a position of saying, no mowing for 2 weeks or anything like that. I wouldn't want to do that with Parks. Thank you.
If I could just add one more comment. One thing we are going to be looking at over the next few years is looking throughout our park system and determining, are there areas in our parks that we're mowing that maybe we shouldn't be mowing, that maybe can go to more of a natural area, or we can plant prairie grasses instead in place. So I know that is something that I'm working with our park planner on, and we'll be looking at that over the next few years and seeing if we can phase out some of the mowing to help with this to a certain degree. And then the other thing I just want to comment on too is athletic fields. Like I said before, athletic fields do need to be cut a little bit shorter than normal turf. And one thing we've tried in the past is mowing the athletic turf shorter than normal turf. And we ended up just getting a lot of complaints with that because people would come to the parks and they would think that the park was only half mowed, that we only spent our time mowing the athletic fields and forgot about the rest of the park. So we actually generated a lot of complaints when we looked at mowing it differentially between the different park activities. So,
Alder Lefebvre?
I think the reason people would complain about that is because if you drive around Green Bay, you notice how everyone scalps their lawns. I don't know why. I mean, everybody. I don't know why people cut their lawn. They must hate grass. I don't know, or green. I don't know what it is. They keep cutting it so short.
They cut it that they don't have to mow it for a while again or something. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
No, actually, the shorter you cut it, the faster it grows. It's just like your hair. Maybe.
No, not my hair. No.
He doesn't know that.
Okay.
But no, it's true that, yeah. So actually, if you leave it grow a little longer, that you don't have to cut it as often. But I do understand there's different situations going on, and just that I have noticed, like I said, over here in some areas at the sanctuary and everyone, that it wasn't cut at 3. It was really short. So if they can check that out, see if I'm wrong, but that's what I found. So I was just very concerned. It seemed like, that's what they're cutting everywhere. And I was told, yeah, it's at 2.5, 3 inches, but it's not from what I have observed. So that's why I'm bringing this forward. And the thing is too, I would applaud, yes, if we don't need to have grass, prairie, areas and that, the less grass you have, the better, the less we're cutting and polluting and wasting time and money and all that too. So that's a very good idea. I thank Director Ditchite for bringing that up too, to look into that. Thank you.
I just have one question, sort of on topic. The mowers, are there electric mowers that we could eventually swap into our, and go electric as opposed to gas in the fleet of mowers eventually?
So all of our mowers are diesel, and all the new mowers that we've been getting the last couple of years have the Tier 4 system in them that require the lower emissions. So we are doing that with our equipment. That's what I know on that part, but most of them are all diesel, which is a little bit lower emission than I think your typical gas.
Okay, thanks.
That's good.
All right, I'll take a motion.
What is it that we want to do with this? It's just,
Probably receive and place on file.
I move that we receive it and place it on file.
Second.
A motion by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Brunette. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alder LaFave?
I'll stay a little bit longer, but then I have to be at INS at
Okay.
6 o'clock, so I won't stay on.
But INS will follow this. I don't know if it'll be right at 6.
Oh, okay.
Right, so, okay.
Chairman, I just wanted to let you know that Alderman Weary is having internet connection issues, texting him. So just so you know, he didn't forget about us.
Well, I excused him, so he's okay.
So we have a quorum. So
Yeah.
all is good. All right, thank you.
Did we actually vote on this one yet? Or did we? Okay. All in favor, aye. All right, passes unanimously. 3, when?
We're good.
We're good, okay. Item number 3. Consideration with possible action on the approval of the design, construction, and dedication agreement with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation for the construction of the bike skills course at Triangle Hill. Staff?
Yeah, at the October 23rd, 2019 Parks Committee, you gave approval to the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation to fundraise and install a bike skills course at Triangle Hill in the Bear Creek Greenway. So last May, a few months ago, this committee approved changes to the concept plan and moved the proposed bike skills course to be built into the hillside just south of the existing parking lot at Triangle Hill. So the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation now has enough funding in place to complete construction, and they'd actually like to start construction in the very near future. Since they're funding this project 100% through donations, they have requested that the city allow them to hire their own contractor and manage the construction of the skills course. So we have successfully allowed other groups in similar situations where donors are funding the projects entirely on their own to manage their own construction and hire their own contractors. So previous similar projects where we did a similar agreement was the installation of the Ferris wheel by the Friends of Bay Beach, the installation of the 4K addition at the Wildlife Sanctuary by the Friends of the Wildlife Sanctuary, and then most recently we allowed the Green Bay Optimist Group to install a concession/restroom facility at Optimist Park. So we have reviewed this request with the law department, and we're all in favor of approving this request in this situation also. So in order for us to allow this to happen, we will have to enter into a design, construction, and dedication agreement with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. So I've attached a draft of that agreement to the agenda packet for your review. And all of the other groups that I previously mentioned had to sign similar agreements with the city before they were allowed to manage the construction end of things. So if you read over this agreement, I'm not going to go over page by page what it details, but in essence, what it does is it outlines the process and the approvals that their group will have to go through to ensure that the bike park is constructed to our city standards. So items in the contract would include plan review process, permitting, construction inspections, insurance requirements, and then finally what the process would be for the city to take ownership of the project after it's completed. So once the contractor is hired, in addition to this agreement, we'll also require proof of insurance from the contractor, and then the contractor would also be required to sign a separate hold harmless agreement, which would protect the city during construction. So that hold harmless agreement does not need to come forward to the Parks Committee for approval. Only this design, construction, and dedication agreement needs approval. So the Law Department has been working really closely with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation on the details of this agreement and the draft that you see in front of us. And what you see, or what's in front of you, is the final draft that both parties have agreed to the final language on. So we do have Holly from the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. She is in this meeting. If you have questions for her specifically, you feel free to open the floor. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I would like to move to open the floor, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to open the floor, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is now open. Anyone who care to speak on this?
I think Holly Baseman perhaps would.
Maybe not.
I can.
Name and address.
I can. This is Holly Baseman with the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation of 1270 East Main Street, Green Bay. And I don't have a lot to add to what Dan said, other than we've been really thankful for the Law Department and the Parks Department over the last few weeks and getting this agreement to come here. And we're thankful for the compromises that have been made on both sides to make this project possible. So
Glad to hear that. Good. Any questions for Holly? Anyone else? Oh, Alder Gerlach?
Just want to make sure that what we have in front of us, you're perfectly comfortable with it, and Director Ditchite is perfectly comfortable with it. There's nothing that we have to worry about.
correct on our part.
And I am also comfortable with the agreement, and we do have Lindsay Mather, who's in this meeting. She works in the law department if you have specific questions for her.
Well, first, anything for Holly? Then why don't we close the floor? Motion to close the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to close the floor, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Lindsay, did you need to add anything or?
Oh, I was just going to say, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep,
I was
you're
just
good.
going to say, Attorney Bungert worked on this one, and she has signed off on this version as well.
Okay. My fellow alders, Alder Lefebvre?
Yeah, I just like, this is great that we're having these different groups coming forward. They're spending money that we don't have to do for taxpayers, as long as everything is kosher, you know, all the legal things are right, and that we have the insurance and all these different things. I think this is good, really good for the city. Thanks, Dan, and all those who have come forward for doing this.
So I'll take a motion if there's no other discussion or questions.
Motion to close the floor, I guess.
Well, we already closed it.
We did?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to
Second.
Motion to approve by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Yep. Good work by everybody. Really appreciate it.
Let me know when you're ready, James.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
I think maybe we just ought to remind people that what we approve in this committee.
Yes, I should have said that at the beginning. Sorry. Thank you. Yes. Everything we do at the committee here level is just a recommendation to council. Council has the final say. We meet next Tuesday, 6 o'clock.
And we are ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on the approval of naming rights for the Bear Creek Bikes Skills Course to be called the Cirrus Bike Park. Staff?
So the city was contacted by the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation and the Cirrus Foundation with an exciting donation opportunity for the proposed bike skills course that we just discussed that the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation is fundraising for. So Cirrus is a company located in Madison that specializes in the production of bike racks, bike storage systems, and bike training equipment. So they're leaders in the industry also for bike advocacy. So one goal of theirs is to implement the Cirrus Bike Park for Kids mission. And I went on their website, and per their website, the purpose of the mission is to build resiliency and self-confidence in our underserved youth by getting them to experience the joy of biking through a world-class network of integrated off-street bike trails and bicycle parks. So we're really excited about this opportunity, and what they offered to do was to donate $100,000 to the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation for this project in exchange for naming rights of the bike skills course. So as you read in the agenda item, if approved, the bike park will be called the Cirrus Bike Park in perpetuity. So throughout as long as the park is there, that's what it would be named. So their group does strongly believe in a public-private partnership as part of their donation process. And if you read over the agenda packet information, you'll have seen a letter that they included in there. And typically with their donations, they request a 50-50 match between public and private partnerships. So in this situation, there really is no need to include a public match to this particular bike park project, because the funding isn't needed. The Bear Creek Preservation Foundation, they've already secured the remaining funding to complete this project. But there was still a desire for the city to put a match towards this donation. So instead, we looked at our park projects and what we had in the works, and what we recommended is and asked is if they would accept the city investing $100,000 towards other bike trail improvements in the Bear Creek Greenway that aren't necessarily affiliated with this project in particular. So, and just by chance, the Parks Department already included this request for funding for $100,000 in 2022 as part of the last 5-year capital improvement plan that was just reviewed and approved by the Finance Committee and City Council. So that was in there for the year 2022. So we reviewed it with Cirrus, and they do agree that meets the intent of the partnership, and they would accept this as a match, even though it will not go directly towards the bike skills course. So I did review this with the finance director, and she is agreeable to this option. And you'll see the next item on the agenda is to approve a resolution committing the city to fund $100,000 for Bear Creek Trail improvements in the 2022 bond request. So if you have questions or concerned about the proposed match, we probably could talk about that as part of this agenda item because the naming rights are conditional upon approving the funding. So I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to talk about it in this agenda item or if you want to talk about it in the next agenda item. Possibly Lindsay might have an opinion on that. But for this agenda item in particular, we're only requesting to approve naming rights for the Bear Creek Bike Skills Course to be called the Cirrus Bike Park. So we officially don't even need to accept the donation because that donation is being made to the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation, not to the city of Green Bay. So that being said, I do have somebody here from obviously Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. Holly's still on the call. And we have Ann Christensen from Cirrus who is here to talk about the donation and any questions that you have in regards to the naming rights. I'm sure she would be able to answer them.
Okay, well, does anyone have any questions or for Holly or Ann? Or Director Dishite? Lynn?
Shall we open the floor? I would just like to ask a quick question of Holly Baseman.
Okay, well, make a motion to open the floor.
Move to open the floor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to open the floor, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Perhaps you should ask the question, Alder Gerlach.
Okay, just want to make sure that the Baird Creek Preservation Foundation is fully on board with this decision for naming rights.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Yes, I hear Cirrus is a big wheel in the industry, and I'm glad they have a spokesperson here.
Thank you.
Would you
Happy
add
to be
anything?
here.
Andrew.
You hear me okay?
Yep. Just please state your name and address.
Thank you. Ann Christensen. We're off Verona Road in Madison, Wisconsin.
I think everybody's, well, I don't know. Are we ready to, are there any questions for Ann? Anything Ann you care to add?
I just think it would be nice if she talks, just to give us a little idea of why they were motivated to give such a great amount to this particular project, and talk a little bit about her organization.
Thank you. I'd be very, very happy. So thanks to all those attending this meeting tonight. The Cirrus company was formed in 1979. The Fortune family it's been a family-run business. Even before they actually bought the business. And then for sure, they've always been, the Fortune family has always been very involved in kids, cycling, and anything that has to do with, just getting kids back on bikes, and also just, the care and making sure that little ones are cared for. A few years back, Chris Fortune, who is the CEO, formed the Cirrus Foundation, and with that was a mission that was around bike parks. We feel that bike parks are, and the reason for bike parks is just to, encourage more physical activity and to, give kids this new skill, something that has been sort of declining over the past few years. So very sadly, we're seeing a lot of declines in kids actually even knowing how to ride bikes, going through their youth and becoming adults who don't know how to ride bicycles. And then, with this idea of, the fact that kids are spending a lot of time on screens, and, some that is obviously purposeful with regards to school and other things, to get that balance back for them to be in the outdoors and experiencing the outdoors. So bike parks was really something that, that is at the very core. We're looking for something that was going to really give kids, something that was like building a skill, as well as directing this specifically at middle schoolers and young on through to young adults. Something that was a little bit more challenging, something that they would continue to come back to. And the location of Green Bay is really a marriage of the personal life of the Fortunes as well as the professional one. The Hendrickson Foundation is also helping us put this together. This is Sarah Fortune's family foundation, as well as the Chris Fortune Foundation. So the two of them together are very involved in this, in education and kids, and this felt like the right place to have the very first one of these be funded by the Cirrus Foundation.
I would just like to respond briefly, if I may. to her?
Sure.
I just want to tell you that my youngest grandson came up to visit me a few weeks ago from Missouri, and he brought 2 bikes with him in the back of the van. And he was just heartbroken that this skills course wasn't ready yet. So much for your generosity. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks. We look forward to seeing many of these in many, many cities to come. We really feel like this is really going to make Baird Creek and Green Bay one of those places in the world, a destination for cycling for all ages. We look forward to basically promoting the heck out of this thing and making sure that people know how much fun this is, get some video out there. Like, I can talk for hours and hours about how much fun these things really actually are. And really looking forward to getting this one done here. So thank you, everyone.
Motion to close the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to close the floor, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now closed. What are your wishes?
Move to approve the naming of the bike skills course.
I'll second. I do have a quick question, though.
Okay, let's just get this out of the way. Motion by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Burnett. Go ahead, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Christensen, for your comments, and thank you for the donation. My question would be for Director Ditchite. You know, from time to time, naming rights and things like that come up, and this might be a little different situation than what we've encountered, but is this kind of in line with what the city's policy is? I know we had that discussion a few years ago.
Yeah, this would be in line with what we've done in the past.
Okay, that's all.
I'm glad to hear Green Bay is going to be peddled as a bike destination. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yep. Thank you very much.
You ready, James? Okay, we are ready.
Item number, I believe it's 5. Consideration with possible action on the approval of a resolution committing to fund the bike trail improvements in the Baird Creek Greenway. You've already spoken a little bit about this, Director Ditchite. Want to say anything more?
At this point, I don't have anything else to add unless you have specific questions for me.
I'm good. Anyone else? Take a motion.
Move to approve.
Sorry, but I just really want to amend this resolution.
There's some grammatical errors.
There should be no
If I
comma
could.
after the word whereas.
If I could jump in, you
Go
don't.
ahead.
We don't need a formal amendment. Alder Gerlach, I had a sneaking suspicion that this was going to come up. So the comma and the capital letter after is actually Robert's Rules format, so that's just why you kind of see it everywhere. But it's really trivial, so we're happy to change the format. This was just one that happened to be prepared prior to you having that discussion at PMP on Monday. So you don't have to formally amend it. I can do that before it gets on the council agenda.
Oh, thank you. And please take out the comma after resolved.
That's the same thing. That's Robert's too, but we'll take that one out.
I got to talk to Robert.
That comma is very resolved. It's got a lot of backbone. It's very resolved. Then are we good to vote on this? Everybody all in favor?
Well, I made a motion, but it wasn't second.
Second.
I thought, okay, I'm sorry. Alder Burnett, motion to approve, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
We are ready for the next item.
Item number 6. Request by Alder Burnett for discussion with possible action on the plan to remove dead, dying, or infected trees on city property. This may include contracting with private companies. Do you want to go ahead, Director Dishon, or do you want Alder Burnett to jump in first?
I guess I prefer Alder Burnett, just lead the
Okay.
discussion and we'll go from there.
Very good. Alder Burnett, ball's yours.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I want to preface my comments by saying that I've had absolutely no issue with Brian Pilot. I think he's a fine city employee. We've interacted. He's always been very professional in response to me and issues in my district. But probably the last month and a half, 2 months, had a rather significant number of tree complaints that have come up, not in city parks, but more specifically on terraces, city right of way. So it's trees that we plant and maintain and therefore are responsible for. A lot in regards to emerald ash borer, which is a huge concern out here. And so over the course of a month and a half, 2 months, I've had 5, including one today. So even more than that, I suppose. And it's about, trees being marked, not cleared as promised. People feel like certain trees are absolutely in horrendous condition and should be moved up the ladder, so to speak, as far as requirement that they get removed first. So just a lot of concerns out here. And I know that the forestry department does good work, but maybe it's to a point where, one, they can't keep up. And especially when we have storms like what we had on last night or the night before and what we're probably having right now. So I know that then we got to look at a little more clever ways to get the work done. And if it's a workload situation, I know we had changed some job descriptions in that area. I think recently hired people, but I'm just looking for options. Mr. Pilot did mention that the city did look at contracting in the past with private companies, and I'm not looking to replace city employees. I'm simply just saying maybe there's an opportunity for us to supplement our workforce through private contractors to get caught up, because emerald ash borer is decimating a lot of trees throughout the city, and specifically in my neighborhood, to the point that I've had 6-7 people call me about trees in a month and a half, which means there's probably more problems than we're aware of. So that's rare. That doesn't happen, but it has happened a lot. So again, absolute respect for Mr. Pilot. He and I have exchanged emails. He's been very responsive, but I just think we need to look at this a little further, get some answers from the forestry department, and determine if we need to allocate additional resources, especially as we head into the budget year. So those are my comments.
Director Dishon?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to just say a few sentences and then pass it on to Brian to kind of give you the details. But, in general, I think you're not the only alder who's going to get these complaints and who's gotten them. So it's going to become more prevalent as time goes on. So this is kind of the tipping point this year where emerald ash borer is kind of getting beyond what our staff can manage with the staff we have and the equipment we have. There's just more trees dying than we can cut down in any given year. And to date, we did a lot of proactive management throughout the last 5-6 years, maybe even more than that, to hold us over until now. Had we not done that proactive management, we'd be in a much worse situation than we're in right now. But that being said, like I said, we're at that tipping point. All of the alders are going to start getting a lot of complaints about this issue. So Brian and I have had a lot of discussions over the last few months, actually, on how we manage this and how we kind of resolve this situation. And I'll let Brian go over the details of kind of what we're going to propose moving forward here to help alleviate the situation.
Thanks, Dan. I guess I'd like to say, Alder Burnett, thank you for those kind words, and other alders on staff too. I know you guys back us up and do appreciate our efforts, and we appreciate that support from you and council in general. So just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, as Dan mentioned, we are kind of at a tipping point. If you look back in history, emerald ash borer came into Green Bay in 2009. It was first detected in the state of Wisconsin in 2008. So we are going on 12 years of dealing with this. And, up until last year, those first 11 years was more of an effort to slow the spread is really what we were trying to do through a variety of things. We did a lot of preemptive removals on ash trees that were not in good condition or were not in good locations. And then along with that, we've been monitoring with trapping programs, and we've been treating trees. We've been treating trees, street trees, and some park trees since 2010. In the last 3 years, we've been treating on average 2,500 ash street trees every year. They're not the same 2,500 trees, but we are treating a good percentage of that street tree population. So just to put this in perspective a little bit more, in 2009, we started out with 7,200 ash street trees. Currently, today, we're at 5,000. There are certainly sections of Green Bay that have higher concentrations of ash. And unfortunately, Alder Burnett, you're in one of those neighborhoods. You have about 44% of your street trees are ash. So you are feeling the effects out in your area there. Also on the far east side of town as well, we have high percentages of ash that are in that 40% range. And that's really where the majority of our phone calls are coming from. There's other areas you can drive around the corner, and then there's really nice looking ash trees. And then there's certain streets that are just really getting attacked right now. Starting last year in 2020, we did notice that transition in how emerald ash borer is affecting the trees. And we are transitioning from that slow the spread mentality to more of a preserving the quality ash trees that we do have, because the treatments are working in the trees that are healthy and vigorous. And we do plan to keep an ash component as part of our street tree population for the long term. Having saying that, though, as well, it's very obvious to anybody driving around northeast Wisconsin, for that matter, there's a lot of dead ash trees this year that are on the landscape. And what we're looking at starting last year, we've evaluating trees every year for removals. The last 3 years, we've been looking at capping the ash tree removals at 600 a year. And that's more of an effort to keep our stump numbers that we do the following season in check so that we can get through all of the stump grinding and then tree replacement. Where we're at right now, though, quick look at our tree inventory. We have 1,700 ash trees that are in condition that require removal at this time. We're still in the process of getting through looking at all of the ash street trees, but I pretty confidently feel that that number is going to be about 2,000 to 2,200 ash trees that are in condition where treatments aren't working. There's just not enough health and vigor left in those trees. So starting last year, we knew we were going to have to ramp up some efforts with tree removal. Some of the trees that we didn't remove last year that started to be struggling, some of those we did treat last year. And, we want to keep as many trees around as we can. So I wanted to give those trees a year of growth to see if the treatments would take and if those trees would turn around. Some of them did, some of them aren't. Moving forward, we're looking at getting more aggressive with our tree removal and treating the trees that are in good condition that we can keep around long term, putting more of a focus on treating just those trees. Going through my notes here, I got a bunch of bullet points, but what we're proposing at looking at that number of ash trees, Dan and I have been talking quite a bit. I've been talking with my staff as well. How do we ramp up those removal numbers? And we feel confident that we can handle the work in-house. However, there will be some transitions to our operations to do that, namely being that we would have to really curtail the amount of pruning that we do and also stop stump grinding for a period of time because we only have a 12-person staff. So we need those crews redoing the tree removal portion. They won't be able to do the stump grinding. So if we propose a removal process that would speed up those overall removals of those 2,000 trees, We could get them done in 1.5 to 2 years, but we would drastically be cutting back the amount of pruning that we do. It would basically just be storm-related pruning, safety-related pruning, public safeties, clearance, street signs, things like that. So there would be no regular street tree pruning during the removal operation. And then, of course, the stump grinding would be put on hold until we got through this 2 to 3 year time period to get all the tree removal portions done.
And of course, that would have implications down the road too. If we start limiting our proactive pruning, then we may get complaints from the public that we're not pruning enough also. So there really is no good solution to this problem. There's just more work than what we can get accomplished with the staff and equipment we have. And so we're at the point now where, as we're prioritizing what work needs to be done, we're in agreement that tree removals have to start taking a priority over some of the other activities that we do in forestry. So what normally would take us probably maybe 3 to 4 years to remove the number of trees that we would have to remove, we're hoping to ramp it up and maybe remove them in a 2-year process. Now keep in mind that for the bulk of the removals, these are just street tree removals that we're talking about. And then park trees, we would only remove the ones that really have to come down. So if we include park trees in the mix, that's quite a few more trees that we have to remove. Now, we've already proactively removed kind of the worst areas within the parks, but there's still isolated ash trees that aren't really even taken into account in the numbers that Brian just provided to you. And then finally, the one thing that isn't taken into account at all are the trees within the greenways. So right now, those trees, our take on those trees are it's a natural area. And we cannot go in there and proactively cut down all of the ash trees in the greenways and those natural areas. Now, we will take out the trees that where there's concerns along property lines and potential damage to houses or garages. But anything that's within the woods that isn't harming a structure or an adjacent property, we don't have a mechanism in place to take those trees out.
Director, do you think the agenda item mentions the possibility of contracting private companies? Is that something you think is a viable option, or something you don't recommend, or?
It's an option, but it's a very expensive option, which we don't have the budget for. So if you want to talk about that at budget time, we can talk about it. We can definitely provide numbers, real numbers of what the cost would be. And Brian and I have already talked about it briefly. And, I'm just going to shoot out a number right now, and I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, we've all cut down trees in our yards, or people who have, and you know how expensive that is. I think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're assuming an average street tree might cost about $700 to take down, or $700 to $1,000 is what I believe we talked about. We have 2,000 trees that have to be taken down. At $1,000 a pop, that's $200,000 that you'd have to find in your budget somewhere. And that doesn't include planting or replacing those trees. It doesn't include pruning. It doesn't include stump removals. It's just a very expensive option to contract those services out.
Alder Burnett.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. I mean, that's logical. It makes sense. But then I would question, perhaps we then contract out the thing department's doing that's not removing trees, the planting, the pruning, and things like that. So yeah, I don't think we need to solve all the problems tonight, but I guess I'm a little frustrated in that if you remember the 2020 budget, the city had, used $1.2 million of stormwater fees to fund the forestry department. So it should be resourced from that. I was against that idea. I'm not going to go down that path tonight, but it's just a little frustrating because it seems to me that And now when we have a situation where we probably need more funding to fix a pretty serious problem in regards to trees, we might not have the resources to do it. Dan, where do you lie right now with the budget? Is this an area you're looking to shift additional monies towards, and would that be levy supported?
Well, right now how the budget is set is it's 88% is funded through the stormwater account and 12% is funded through city bonding or city budget process. So obviously, if you're asking the stormwater account to pay more, that would probably reflect in increased rates in stormwater. If you want to make up the difference and just have, the city levy all of that and not increase those stormwater rates, that's an option you could look at in the future also during the budget process, is just have the general budget pay for those.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, but I guess my more pointed question is that as you are, as the director and Mr. Pilat are preparing the budget, because we're close to fall now, are you anticipating putting additional money in the budget proposal to the mayor to address this problem with more staffing or more resources?
No, at this time we're proposing to kind of postpone pruning and stump grinding and focus our efforts on tree removals for the next 2 years.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's fine for now, Chairman.
Alder Lefebvre. Oh, I'm sorry, Alder Gerlach, and then Alder Lefebvre.
So I would like to ask some questions of Mr. Pilat, if that's okay. I know that you became our head forester just a few months ago, and so we haven't had a lot of chance probably to interact with you. Of course, I mean, I haven't had a lot of chance to interact with a lot of people, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've been with the city, and a little bit about your background as a forester.
Sure. So I'm a degreed forester from UW Stevens Point, forestry management and wildlife minor. I worked in the private field for 12 years, working as a consultant for municipalities, doing tree inventory, writing management plans for somewhere north of 45 communities in the state of Wisconsin. I've been with the city of Green Bay for going on 13 years, those first 12 years as assistant forester, and then just recently promoted to city forester.
Okay, so you know a little bit more about trees than I do. Do you feel confident that the path that you're following and that you're planning to follow for the next couple of years to take care of this is sound and safe for both the environment and for the citizens of Green Bay? Are you feel confident that you've got this under control?
I feel confident in our plan. Again, we've been dealing with this since 2009. Every 5 years, I've been reevaluating the plan and, seeing what's working, what's not working, how we need to change implementation. The last 5 year snapshot that I was looking at, I was anticipating to have the same number of trees down somewhere between the years 2023 and 2024. So, whether it's weather related, the increase of emerald ash borer on the landscape, we are seeing an increase in that declining rate of ash trees. If you look at national research, they tell us that within 10 years, if a municipality is doing nothing, 100% of their ash trees would be dead. Again, we're still sitting with 5,000 ash street trees starting at 7,200. So yeah, I'm confident in the things that we're doing are working. The timeline is being sped up a little bit by either weather or the pest itself, but I don't see the magnitude of the overall removal number changing from what we anticipated it to be. So yeah, I do feel confident in that.
Okay, thank you.
Another interesting thing too, you mentioned public safety. And of course, we are getting a lot of phone calls about declining and dead ash trees. And the fear with that is that they're going to fall over in the next storm. And I can understand that. And if I had a dead ash tree in my front yard, I wouldn't want to be looking at it either. But since May 17th, I looked at our on-call reports quickly today. And since May 17th, we've only had 1 week that we have not had a storm-related tree call. The other night we had 40 some calls, and we're going to be anticipating more this evening. But the interesting note of that is that we've only had 2 calls about ash trees that have been damaged because of storms. The majority of those calls are for Norway maples and linden trees. And that's because of the pruning cycle, that we're not able to prune those trees enough to correct structural defect, and it's breaking those trees up. And it's actually resulting in more removals because of the damage from the high winds. So as I can appreciate the concerns in that of the public and the dead ash tree, the science and the reality of it is that those are not the highest risk potential trees that we have right now. It's actually the Norway maple and the linden trees.
Okay, I'm good, thanks.
Alder LaFave.
I was going to say to try to get private companies to come in. You know, Green Bay just has so many that are certified to work in Green Bay. They are way overwhelmed. I had a call Saturday morning. I had a huge branch come out of my box elder in the back and hit my roof. It was laying on my roof, and my company, they came in right away, the ones that we usually have, but they had to go off to someone right after because they are so overwhelmed. They said West Side Green Bay and Oconto really got hit. There were trees on people's houses too. So this wasn't from a wind. This just tree must have been from a long time ago, must have cracked and we didn't realize it. But yeah, they are overwhelmed. I don't even think you'd be able to get a private company to have time to even do it. So, and it's very expensive for them to come in. And so I don't think that it would support it in our budgeting. I don't know. But yeah, I know there's a problem, and I see them all over, not just in the street trees, parks, but also private people. They're letting their elms are dead and they're not doing them because they're just too expensive to take down. I can understand that. But I appreciate, I think Director or Head of Forestry, Mr. Pilat, I think that he's doing a good job. And I think I would recommend, and I think you should probably get something out to the public to let them know that we're going to do this, that you're going to concentrate on getting these dead trees down that need to that you need to do, because it's just an overwhelming situation, and you're just going to have to wait on the pruning. Hopefully it'll be okay on the pruning, normal pruning, and the stump removal for the time being, because otherwise I don't know, how you can get a hold of this situation.
Alder Burnett.
Yeah, Alder LaFave is correct. I think the public input is important, the public communication. So, Director Ditscheider, Brian, are you in contact with the neighborhood associations?
Yes, we are.
Have you presented to the Green Bay neighborhoods meeting?
Not on this topic in particular, no, but that's something we can look forward to doing.
Yeah.
And talk to the planning department, figure out when the next group meeting is going to be, and give a presentation. One other thought in regards to that we could do is we could formally develop a report with a 2 to 3 year ash tree removal management plan, and then present that at the next Parks Committee. So that actually there's a report that we have that would be on file with the agenda packet, so that if any of the alders have questions, they can refer to that park committee and have a report to point to if somebody asks a question.
Yeah. You have the floor, Alder Burnett.
Yeah, I want to give you a little time to do that, Dan, so I don't think you need to do that before the next meeting. I'll be honest, I'm going to scrutinize the budget in this regard a little more, especially because my district seems to be greatly affected, and what Brian said, other districts will also be affected. So I'm going to make sure we put proper resources to it. So I'll save the budget issue for another day in order to get some action. I guess the motion I'll make is to direct the Parks Department or the Forestry Department and Parks Department to create a 2 to 3 year plan to present to the City Council. And then also in that motion, ask that they contact Green Bay neighborhoods to present to one of their monthly meetings.
Just
That's the motion. Is there a second?
Before I second that, I would, I don't know if the right thing is to second it first, but to second it
Go ahead and
first.
second it. We can discuss it and amend it or whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, I second it.
Okay, motion by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Go ahead, Alder Gerlach.
So I just thought that I heard Director Ditchite say that he would create sort of a summary of what is happening, what the plan is. And I hear in the motion, it sounds like you're saying you're asking them to create a plan. And I think that we have to be careful of that. Isn't he going to just summarize what the plan is?
Yeah, that's a good catch. I guess that's the right way to look at it. So kind of make a motion, or could I just kind of modify that, Dan? What do you hear? What do you need as part of the motion?
I would say to refer to staff to summarize the 2 to 3 year ash tree removal management plan and present it to the next, I guess, do you want to present it at the council or the Parks Committee? Would be my first question. And then
Parks,
okay, and
Parks.
present it at a future Parks Committee, and also per your request to meet with the neighborhood associations to discuss it with them.
Yeah, I'd like to amend it so that's the motion. And just one quick comment, Dan, if you can get that by September, I think that would be appropriate. I know you're busy wrapping up the summer sports leagues and whatnot. So as long as we have it by September, I'm fine.
So I second the amended motion.
Okay, motion by Alder Burnett, second by Alder Gerlach. I would just like to add that I know contracting out, the city's going out on a limb for that. But what about if we added 1 or 2 more employees? Is that something that would make a significant difference? Would that be a way to maybe perhaps move forward at all, or is that?
I think Brian can better answer that, but in general, the more employees, the more work you can get done. But you do have to take into consideration the available equipment with those additional employees. So it doesn't do you much help if you have the employees, but you don't have the equipment for them to do anything. So.
If I can just comment quick on that, that is something that we've been looking into through an apprenticeship program that it's relatively new in the state, but that is an option that we're looking at. And we may not be able to fully equip any staff initially, but if we can even outfit those guys with climbing gear to do the pruning on the small tree pruning, that's greatly going to help set the structure for the generations to come. And it alleviates the poor structure and the wind damage in the trees that we're seeing. So that would be a creative solution to help things out into the future.
Okay, well, I hope you can pursue that and present it at least as an option come budget time. I think I would really be looking forward to that. Alder Burnett?
Yeah, I just want to thank you. This is a great discussion. It's exactly what I wanted. I just wanted to make sure Mr. Pilot and Dan know I think you're doing great with the resources we've given you as a council, but the main thought is maybe we need to develop more resources because we're dealing with something that's out of the ordinary. And though you've done a great job up until this point, I think maybe the council needs to seriously consider, even if it's just a short-term infusion of funding to get you guys caught up, because we don't want to put any of your crews in a situation where they feel like they're getting so far behind that they got to do work quicker and that it's not safe. And I want to be, aware that we don't want your crews to be burnt out or feel the burden of this issue they're dealing with. So just want to make sure you have our support. I think it's just up to the council to give you the tools to do the job.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah. Burnout would be very bad with trees. Yeah. Burnout with trees. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That passes unanimously.
We are ready for the next item.
Number 7, consideration with possible action on the reallocation of funding for the Bear Creek Pedestrian Bridge project. Staff?
So a few years ago, the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation approached the city and requested to install a pedestrian bridge just east of the existing parking lot on Bear Creek Road. So there's several advantages for this proposal. One, it will allow easy access for the public and emergency vehicles to access the trails north of the creek for anyone who parks in that parking lot. Secondly, and more importantly, this will alleviate a safety concern that the railroad brought up a few years ago. So currently, anyone who's biking on the trails north of the creek really has no choice but to cross railroad tracks to the north to continue biking eastward on the trail. And this informal crossing has been utilized by the public for decades. So it's a trail that the public created. It's not a trail that we installed. It's a trail that people just blazed on their own. But it is not an approved railroad crossing location. So a few years ago, the railroad did indicate that they will not approve a formal crossing in this location due to safety concerns, and they proposed to eliminate this informal crossing also. So what they did at the time is they did install signs along the trail right at their property line indicating that the public cannot cross the tracks in this location. And this in turn, causes confusion for bikers because there's no other way to cross the creek other than go over the railroad track. So this bridge would allow bikers and hikers to avoid the railroad tracks altogether and cross the creek to get to the parking lot and then go eastward from there. And so this project was partially funded in 2020 and 2021 with $175,000 in city bonding. So in addition, the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation committed $30,000 donation towards this project. So right now we have available $205,000 to this project. So at the time when we requested money in 2021, we only requested $75,000. When we put our bond request together, that's what our consultant told us we were short with the project because we did hire an engineering consultant to design this project. When we were midway through the process of getting that bonding approved, our consultant revised their estimates and increased their estimate to $332,000, which greatly exceeded what our budget was for. But unfortunately, we were too far along in the process of the bond request to request additional funding in 2021. So what we ended up doing is I did give the approval to, and I worked with Steve, Public Works Director, to bid this out even though we didn't have enough funding per the engineer's estimate. I knew that if necessary, there was some potential funding sources that we could review with the committee if the bids came in higher than what our funding was. So, and as it turns out, it did. So we bid the project out. The low bid came in at $310,000. As I mentioned, we only have $205,000 dedicated towards this project. So that means we have a shortfall of $105,000. So this is, I believe, on the INS committee for review and approval to award the bid. I believe it's on their agenda right after this committee. So, but in order to actually award that bid, we have to figure out where we're going to get the money from. So what I'm proposing to do to come up with the shortage is to take that money out of our Colburn improvement project that's already been funded and awarded. So we recently bid out the construction of 2 Little League fields at Colburn Park. We do have $25,000 available in excess funding from that project because the bids came in lower than what we thought they were going to come. So that will make up some of the shortage of funding. And the remaining $80,000, what I would recommend is that we propose to postpone or eliminate the relocation of the hockey rink at Colburn Park. So that was never included in the bid package. We were going to see where the bids came and then see if we could afford to relocate that hockey rink at a later date. So that project was funded in 2019. And so the reason we're proposing to postpone or possibly eliminate relocating that rink is for us to give us time to determine whether or not it's really needed. So we based that relocation on some preliminary design of the new open space that's going to be provided by rebuilding the parking lot. So what we'd like to do is, once we're done with the ball field project and the expansion of that parking lot, we'll see if we really need the additional open space from the relocation of that hockey rink. We may find that we still want that additional open space, or we may find that it's not necessary once people start utilizing the new open space that's available. If we do find that we do need to relocate that hockey rink at some point in the future, then we would have to request money at that point to go ahead and proceed with the relocation of that hockey rink. But that hockey rink is not necessarily something that has to be done in order to build out the master plan. It's something that would probably improve the space and the usability by the people using the ball fields and concession stand. But is it 100% necessary to do it at this time? No. So I would recommend that at this point we postpone that project and use that funding and reallocate it towards the pedestrian bridge project, which in my mind, we're ready to go on that one. That money's been sitting for several years. We'd like to spend it now. And there really is a need for this pedestrian bridge from a safety standpoint with people crossing those railroad tracks. So that would be my recommendation. I guess if we're not able to approve this tonight or find some other funding source tonight, then I don't think Public Works would be able to approve the bid at INS. So that's where we sit.
Alder Burnett.
Well, Dan, the obvious question is, taking resources, whether they were used or not, from one park to benefit another, as an alderman in my district, that would be a concern, and Alderman Weary is not here. So in regards to Colburn, I would hate to go ahead and pass this without getting his input as an alder, because for all we know, there could be citizens in his district or people who use that or want to use that could be really frustrated to hear that money was diverted. So what are your comments on that? I mean, what's your response?
I was hoping to get input from Alderman Weary tonight. Obviously, I didn't know he wasn't going to attend. I definitely will reach out to him before the council meeting, explain the project to him, review what we've talked about at Parks Committee here, and I guess he can weigh in on it at council if somebody wants to pull the agenda item for further discussion. But like I mentioned, I have not reviewed this proposal with Alderman Weary in any detail as of now.
Yeah, I mean, and again, just a little more personal for me because I represented that district. That was my neighborhood, and I know that we were putting a lot of resources in Colburn recently, so it's not like that park has been without. We made some major upgrades to it, but having represented that area and having the fact that the alderman who represents the district's not here, that again, you haven't discussed it with him. That's not your fault. You didn't know he wouldn't be here. But if there's a motion to that effect, I'm just personally, I'm going to vote no. That doesn't mean I'm not going to support it. But given all of that, I don't feel comfortable giving the endorsement of that shift at the meeting tonight.
Yeah, Alder Brown.
I would like to be clear on this. I thought I heard you say the hockey rink would not be moved anyway until other changes at Colburn Park were made. And so this probably was going to be, what did you say, like 2 years down the road?
If we were to continue with the relocation of the hockey rink, it would not happen until next year for sure. So what we'd like to do is to finish the ball field renovations, reconstruct the parking lot. That's already funded and being done this fall. And then once we know how the people are using that space, will determine whether or not we have to redesign it to accommodate how it's being used. So, I mean, ideally, we could use this funding to relocate that rink next year, maybe in the fall after the baseball season is done, so we can see how people are utilizing the space. The reason for relocating it was to give us a little bit more room to put a playground in close proximity to it. Now, that being said, there is plenty of room to put the playground in and still keep the hockey rink in place. So that would not impede us putting in the playground, but we weren't going to request funding for that playground until 2022 anyway. So that is in our 5-year CIP for 2022 to secure money for that playground, which means the playground wouldn't be installed until 2023. So I guess the thought process behind this was, the money for the hockey rink has been sitting there since 2019. There's a need for it now. If we find that there's still a need to relocate the hockey rink as part of the playground project, then at that point, when we ask for money for the playground, we would then ask for money to relocate the hockey rink in conjunction with that, because they would be done at approximately the same time. But we may find that, once the playground's in, or we actually design the playground, that there is no need to relocate that in the future at all. So what this does is it buys us time to reevaluate the need to do it. And I really don't want to unnecessarily spend the $80,000 on something that, we may not need in the future. So,
but would you say for sure that we need to build this pedestrian bridge? Didn't you say it was a safety issue that we've known about for several years?
The railroad has brought up the safety concerns. Like I said, the trail has been there for decades. There hasn't been any incidents that I'm aware of, but the railroad has expressed concerns. And in fact, when they first brought it to our attention, for a while they staffed it and told people who came up to the trail that they're not allowed to cross there. Which they have every right to do that as a railroad because it's trespassing. So right now it's just confusing for the public. The trail has no options for any other way other than to turn around and go back the way they came without trespassing on private property. So that is a concern. The railroad has a safety concern, and it is confusing to the general trail users out there. So we are ready to move on that project right now, and there is a demand and a need for it if we can secure the funding.
Sounds like we're being railroaded. Alder LaFave.
This is a legal question. Okay, now the railroad has contacted us and noted that people are trespassing, and even though the trail was not a city trail or park trail put in, the trail is there, and these are people who are crossing it. I still wonder, because if we don't approve this, setting up, the railroad could come after us, the city. This is for
Ms. Mather. Can't you? Ms. Mather?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is kind of the background data that I gave you.
Sorry, I had muted myself in 2 different places and forgot. So since I don't know, I haven't done the specific research, obviously, but if it's not a city-sponsored trail and it is just a place that kind of develops by frequent use of people as opposed to something that the city actually created, we don't necessarily have an obligation to do anything other than, make whatever we've already done. I mean, the railroad has every right, like Dan said, to put up the signs and staff it if they want. And it frequently is a safety issue when people are biking over railroad tracks. But if as long as we're not the ones creating the unsafe conditions, especially when they're in the woods, that we would have far less exposure than if we had created the trail that went right up to the railroad tracks and said, but you can't go any farther. So I would have to do more research to get you a definitive answer, but my initial impression is that the railroad wouldn't have any cause of action to come after us.
Okay. But I still wonder too, like for the city, to just say we're not going to do anything and ignore it and somebody did get hurt. I just think it's our responsibility to either put a big barrier up or something, to keep them from using it, than to have somebody actually get hurt. So I just think that, it would make sense it's a safety. If you know it's something is wrong, you need to take care of it.
Okay, someone from the public would like to speak. So if there's a motion to open the floor.
Move to open the floor, please.
I will second that.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to open the floor, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, if you could just give your name and address one more time.
Yep, this is Holly Basement. Address is 1270 East Main Street, Green Bay.
Go ahead.
All right, so I just want to chime in with some background details to add to what Dan said. So the railroad actually reached out to the Bear Creek Foundation in 2017, and the city and the foundation worked together to try and come up with potential options besides doing this bridge, and presented those options to the railroad. All of them were either ridiculously costly or just not feasible. And so really this project has been in the works for 4 years, since 2017 when it was identified. And, it was immediately identified as a safety issue. But the other thing that, has been, a factor in not having a way to get people back across is they have no other way, like Dan said, to get back to the trail system other than to turn around and come back the way that they came from. And so if people are unaware of that, or they're new users of the Bear Creek Greenway trail system, they A, may not realize that, and B, may get all the way out there and have to turn around and come back realizing that there is a crossing issue. And this is a very small thing, I know, but we are in the process of putting all new trail signage out in the Greenway. And right now, on that signage, it just looks like we have a trail that dead ends and people can go nowhere. And so what we would really like to do is we'd like to see a 4-year project get closed out and get a fix in place so that we can show on our trail signage that we actually have trails that connect and get people back to parking lots.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Very helpful. Motion
And
to close the floor.
if I could, Alder Scannell,
Oh, certainly. Well, certainly. Go ahead.
when you close the floor,
Oh, okay.
you can close
motion
the
to
floor
close
first.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to close the floor, second by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now closed. Go ahead, Ms. Mather.
Thank you. I misunderstood Alder Lefebvre's question. I thought she had asked about the railroad potentially raising any kind of claim against the city. But I just, like Ms. Bateman just talked about, since the city and Baird Creek were alerted to the potential safety issue, we have been working on it because, like you said, Alder Lefebvre, we do have an obligation once we're aware of a potential hazard to make some efforts. And I'm glad to hear that the signage is being updated because that was going to be one of my suggestions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Burnett and then Alder Gerlach.
Okay, Alder Gerlach could have gone, but thank you. It's not the viability of the project at Barrett's Creek. I think it just makes complete sense and necessary at this point. It's just the shifting of the funds that I'm not comfortable with right now. It doesn't mean I won't support it at council, but we're taking funds from one project that previously was voted on. And although, we say that we can put the funds back in future budget years, there's no guarantee that the council in those years, whether it be this year or next year, will actually do that. So that's why I'm against it. Again, just tonight. That's all. Thank you.
Yep, understand. Yep, Alder Gerlach.
I feel just the opposite. I think we have an obligation to take care of a safety issue, and that this is a more pressing issue than moving the hockey rink. As the director has said, we might even end up not moving the hockey rink once the playground is built. So if you would entertain a motion, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I move that we eliminate the relocation of the Coburn Hockey Rink project and reallocate $110,000 from the Coburn Hockey Rink and Coburn Ballfield projects to go toward the Baird Creek Pedestrian Bridge project.
And I take it, Alder Burnett, you don't want to second that? Yeah, I'll second it. I think if this was a final decision, I would be really hesitant. Also, I agree. I appreciate Alder Burnett's concern, but I think there's plenty of time for Alder Weary to get put up to speed, and then he can certainly pull it and make a recommendation that it comes back to parks or whatever. So I feel pretty comfortable going forward with this. But I understand Alder Burnett's hesitation. For myself, I think this sounds like a smart solution, a viable solution. We'll see what Alder Weary says, but it seems to make sense to me. So I will support it going forward, and we'll see what happens at council.
And I will definitely reach out to Alderman Weary before council.
Okay, thank you. That'd be excellent. If he's back in time, he might. Yeah, I won't say anything. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. So 2-1. Alder Burnett in dissent. Alder Lefebvre?
I just want to say they're not coming back till Friday. So if Dan wants, I can call and I can give you his cell number.
Okay, that would be fine.
If you want to call him up there, sure.
Okay. Yeah, he can climb a tree to get the reception. Okay, that passes 2-1 with Alder Burnett in dissent. And are we ready to move on, or?
Yes.
Okay. And we are on to informational. Director's report.
I just have a few quick items I want to touch bases on. It will be pretty brief. So one is the Joannes Aquatic Center is now closed down for the season, and the pool is now, I believe it's been drained already, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. We only opened it to do lessons out there. We weren't able to open it due to a lifeguard shortage to the public. So. Secondly, I just want to give you a brief summary on the deer management program at the Wildlife Sanctuary. So in 2020, there were a total of 35 deer harvested. So 28 of those were antlerless and 7 were antlered. And we tested all of them for CWD, and we did not find any in any of the deer, which was great. Our goal for the year for 2020, though, was 40 deer, and we didn't quite hit that goal. So after the deer were harvested, we did conduct another on-site deer count using the same 2 methods we talked to you about at the last year when we got the approval to start this program. And the new count was estimated to be about 85 to 113 deer on site. So this is down last year from the estimated count where we estimated 129 to 172 deer. But it's still much greater than what the DNR would recommend for a site of this size. So the DNR does recommend that a healthy herd consists of 35 to 40 deer. And like I mentioned, we're estimating 85 to 113 deer on site. So therefore, our plan is to continue with this program in 2021 in the fall. And so we did review all of this information with the DNR, and we worked jointly with the DNR wildlife biologists on staff. And the goal for 2021 would be to thin the herd by about 20 deer. So we'll work with within the same parameters as last year that was set by this committee, and we'll continue the program this fall. And then lastly, we did put together a committee to start developing guidelines and strategies for implementing more dog parks into our park system. So we discussed that several months ago that we were going to form a committee. So our first committee meeting is scheduled for tomorrow evening. And, you know, we have individuals from all over the community. I believe we do have 1 or 2 alders on the committee. Excuse me? Okay. Alder Galvins and Alder Stevens both said that they were interested in being a part of that committee. So we'll kind of keep you updated as time progresses on discussions on that topic. So that's all I have to add other than what the report currently says.
Anyone questions, comments? I do have a question. I've had a few people ask me about the Sergeant Benjamin Edinger Trail sign. It's down. I'm assuming it's just being painted or refurbished. That's what I told them, but I was asked to find out, if, you know, what's up with the sign.
I will get back to you on the status on that. Truthfully, I don't know offhand. That wasn't mentioned to me that we took it down. So it's either being restored or there was damage to it and we're replacing it. So offhand, I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you.
Okay, thanks. Alder Burnett, and then Alder Gerlach, and then Alder LaFave.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for the update on Joanne's. It's unfortunate, but hoping next year that can be avoided. Again, a budget decision. Just consider putting more money perhaps in the budget to entice more lifeguards next year. I know there are more things involved with that decision, obviously, but got to get Joanne's open next year. We can't go 3 straight years. That's just not something that can happen. And then other thing, deer here on the west side, although I know it's not city parkland, there may be some property that the city owns out here that's attracting deer because it's a lot of neighbors out here. So I know you and I had discussed that, but just keep that on your radar. I don't know what the solution is. For every person that hates having deer run around, there are probably 3 or 4 that love having deer run around out here. So it is what it is. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Business safety, they can be, you know, quite destructive and you know, yeah.
A lot of gardens, a lot of there's a lot of herds out here and a lot. And of course, Oneida owns some land and I've had some discussions with them. So hopefully we can figure something out.
Alder Gerlach?
I know it's late in the season to be talking about this, but I just want to be clear about this because I have to answer a question about it. As far as our inability to attract enough lifeguards to keep all our pools open, we have been offering $18 an hour, correct?
James, can you answer that? That's not, it was less than that, but James, I think probably has the numbers.
Like 12 to 13 only.
I thought it had been bumped.
We did. Hold up.
James, why don't you turn your mic off and come over here?
Yeah.
James always saw in outer space.
Yeah. James is way out there, man.
I'm always out of this world. Yes. The lifeguard rate was raised so we could start even beginner lifeguards on step 3 or 4, this year, but it still was only around $12 an hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So I needed to know.
Alder LaFave?
This is about the deer program. Do you think the DNR would recommend that you cull more than 20 next year? Because as you know, those that are left have their young. And if so, you're probably, from what you said, you probably got an average of 90, and there still should be only like 35 or so there. So do you think 20 is enough? Is that what the DNR recommended, or do you think they would want you to take a
That is what the DNR recommended.
I'm sorry, I do love seeing the deer I love seeing them, but But there's buts.
That is what the DNR recommended, but what they did say is that if we are able to harvest those deer very quickly, that means that there's probably more deer than what we estimated, and then they would consider filling more tags.
Okay. Because I know, I've had several people out here. I had to explain to them that, yes, I did recommend, and you did go ahead and cull the deer because also it's a safety issue here too. And also as you know, there's so many invasives have gotten into the wildlife sanctuaries, not many places for them to eat. And so these poor deer are pretty lean. But I would also, Alder Burnett, maybe I wonder if he should contact the DNR and maybe too with your area. I can understand, I know some of that area that you represent, that maybe the DNR would have some suggestions and maybe there's something that the DNR might come in and help with.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, then the only thing I'd like to say quickly is, I don't know if anybody read about this, but gypsy moth, they're trying to, they haven't, I don't think they've done it yet, but they're changing the name. Did you read anything about that, Director Dish? Yeah, because gypsy, of course, moths are not looked upon kindly, and gypsy, it's a kind of derogatory slam against gypsies, so just, I think it's coming pretty soon. We'll be calling them those dang moths. Alder Burnett.
Yeah, I did sort of hear that, but now that you mention it, because it was part of the director's report, I have a constituent who circulated a petition of like 30 or 40 signatures in just a few days, trying to heighten the response to gypsy moth. I suppose I call it that for now, but just that'll probably be before this committee. Mr. Pilot was helpful with her, so just funny you would mention that, because that's an issue out here too. There are all kinds of tree related issues out here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. The next Parks meeting is August 11th.
We do have to make a motion on the director's
report. Right.
report.
Motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Burnett to receive and place on file, second by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is received and placed on file. Next committee meeting, August 11th, 2021. We'll have it this year, August 11th this year. Alder LaFave?
Do you think, will they take like a 5-minute break?
I was just going to say,
before they start the next one? Okay.
10-minute break before we begin INS.
Yep.
And thank you, Dan. Thanks, everybody. Great job. And
move to adjourn.
Take a motion to adjourn. Alder Burnett?
Oh, a second.
Second by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Back in 10 minutes, folks, for INS. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, so